Good Saturday morning, guys, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. Guys, I'm your host. That is me, Colin J. Millette, broken owner of Exit Realty Lowcountry Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Yes, 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 guys, we're having a phenomenal time. Guys, it is beautiful weather. It is a beautiful time. It's a beautiful day, quote unquote, in the neighborhood, but it's even a better day in South Carolina. How about that? So, guys, today, look, I'm super, super excited to bring to you. Look, this is a conversation here, and I'm so stoked about it. So, I don't want to waste a tremendous amount of time, but I want to set the stage. We have been having a conversation at the very, very, very high levels, if you will, and it is finally trickling down to action because conversations start and then eventually they kind of come down or trickle down to action. So I'm super excited today to have with us for a very, very important conversation, none other than Mr. Craig Logan with the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce. How you doing, Mr. Logan?
I am phenomenally great. How you doing today?
I'm tremendous, bruh. I'm tremendous. How about that? That's a new one. So, look, if you don't mind for our listeners, let's get in. Tell our folks what it is that you do over at Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. I serve as the Housing Executive Fellow. And 4 years ago, the Chamber made housing attainability one of its top priorities, being that it serves members within the business community. And this is something that continuously comes. And so I work around all things housing. A big portion of my job description is the regional effort to tackle the housing crisis throughout the Berkeley, Charleston County. And so we know when we unify and we work together in numbers, we can have a greater impact. I'll be launching a regional housing coalition to put forth effort to tackle this, right? To talk about policies, to talk about zoning, to talk about things that we can put in place to progressively push us forward to more sustainable housing in our region.
That is awesome. So, look, if you don't mind, Mr. So, look, real conversation, and we talked about this, quote unquote, behind the curtain, before we got started. But guys, look, we've been talking about affordable, and Mr. Logan, look look, I'm gonna give you this one here early. When we talk about it here, we talk about attainable housing. Because see, affordable housing has such a negative connotation. People think, forgive it, but I mean, look, this is being real. They think
Yeah,
projects, they
yeah,
think low income
right.
housing, you know, all the things that are bad. But then you get the NIMBism that comes into play, which is the not in my backyard that comes into play. So we want to we don't want to have that. So attainable
Right.
housing is the term that we use, or like to use here on the show. But we've been doing this for a while. But it is time for like the action conversation by bringing the partners together to figure out how to structure and the community. I'm gonna say this and stop because you got the information, but the community needs to understand the process to create affordable housing, and they don't understand that. So let's get into that. What is this thing going to look like? What do you envision? What are we working towards so we all can get our hands in here and help work with you?
Yeah. You know what? I love how you just kind of brought that up when housing, right? Initially, that can come with that negative connotation, and then you throw affordable shirt, and then people really flip the script, right? That NIMBYism comes in, not in my backyard. When we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about housing for all. And so I know at the chamber we like attainable housing because that really encompasses housing from homelessness to affluent, right? And we know that how the housing issue is not just the issue at the bottom, but in the housing supply chain throughout. So that goes again from people who don't currently to people who can afford $1 million plus home. There's just a general shortage region. And so thinking about attainable housing, that again, housing market that for whatever your income, right, whatever percentage on that AMI level that you're on, area medium income, that addresses housing in that need. And so affordable housing, I like to paint the picture when you think about affordable housing that may deal with, again, homelessness. It could be deals with careers like service industry careers. So you talk about teachers, you talk fighters, you talk about police officers, creating a housing stock and supply chain that again has stock in it for everybody, regardless of where they are in the AMI spectrum. And so that attainable housing is a term that, right, it doesn't come with that negative connotation to it. It fits the picture you are in that model. So if you're on the lower end of that spectrum or even in the affluent end of that spectrum, there's housing specifically for you when we use that term, housing term.
That's it. You know, that's the stuff. I'm sorry, because I'm excited about this for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, because we have been in our community having the conversation for a long time. I mean, a long time. I mean, I'm getting close to 20 years in the business, and housing affordability has been a conversation that I personally have been a part of, if you will, for at least 15 of those years.
Yeah.
I mean, while there have been some successes here and there, they've been, and granted, the thought process is that you create a ripple. You have a success, you drop it, it creates a ripple, and that ripple, disseminates and reaches more and more people. But we're at a place now where the pond has gotten so big, we got to drop some bigger boulders. We
Yeah.
can't drop just a pebble anymore,
Yeah.
a one off. We got to drop boom to have the impact versus what was needed, some time ago. So, who is going to comprise and how can our listeners support this initiative to have this conversation, you know, along with the chamber?
Yeah. So at the chamber, we really have been just doing our jobs. The chamber serves 1,600 businesses in the area, right? And so we know that we have a reach, we have to be able to inform people and then have people to go out and inform their networks. Again, what is the housing crisis that we're in? How did we get in this housing crisis? And then what are some solutions that we can then works to participate in? And so one way that people can get involved is being a part of a regional housing coalition. To find more information about that, simply visit the website. But also, we're going to be launching the coalition August 23rd. Is a coalition that is going to be open and inclusive to all. And so August 23rd, 4 p.m., right here at the Chamber's headquarters, we actually will be launching or the regional coalition. And that's going to be an opportunity for people who want to maybe even just be educated about it. This is an opportunity where you can learn more about it. For people who actually want to put action on the housing crisis, this is an opportunity for you to bring your assets and to share some of those assets as we work towards creating that regional solution around housing. So more than a lot of ways to be involved with it, but it all first starts at that initial meeting on the 23rd of August.
That's extremely exciting. So, let me ask this question. I know you guys are really just kind of, getting into, and trying to wrap your arms around, you know, this whole, and I don't want to refer to it as an issue, that would indicate that it's quote unquote a problem as much as it's something that we as a community can work towards. We've been on the tangent of, equity and inclusion for some time. So this is, something that we can, use in that whole thing as well. What areas, from your studies, from your research, what areas are most impacted negatively by housing affordability currently in our region?
That's a great question, but it really does not directly impact just one area. Kind of what I've been learning as I've been researching and just kind of gaining knowledge around is that this is a region-wide shortage, right? And so what I found is that when people can't afford to live close to where they work, close to where their kids go to school at, they drive further out to obtain housing that they can afford, right? And so as residents leave Charleston County, Burke now gain new residents. And so there's a migration that happens to where people are almost at a need base. They absolutely have to drive further to move further out to afford housing that they can live in, right? When we talk about that affordability, it's suggested not to spend any more than 30% of your income on housing. And so for a lot of people, that means that they're going to have to live further jobs, further away from their kids' schools so that they can again have the finances available to take care of housing, but then also to continue to raise a family, to continue for their family, to buy groceries, to do those necessary things that they need to do. We're seeing that here in North Charleston. We're seeing that in West Ashley. We're seeing that shortage in Berkeley Creek, in Somerville. And so it's really a regional wide problem that we have here in the Tri-County area.
So that is observation from the streets as well. For someone who, works in this, arena, a third of your gross monthly income, you know, from where I'm from, it's a lot of money, but from where I'm at, it's not.
Right.
So, a lot of people are extremely challenged with affordability now, because of that. Because, how do you get people to understand that, okay, this is how they qualify you? And even still, a third of your income, you know, that doesn't take into account if you like to eat out. That don't
Yeah.
take into account,
Yeah.
a lot of other things that are quote unquote off the credit profile that
Yeah.
people don't know that you look here, that you like to go to the club every weekend or whatever it is. Or look here, you get your crab box or whatever it is, your dozen blue crab or whatever. It don't take into account that, or you get them crab legs or what have you. It doesn't factor in any of those particular things, guys, into. So you got to understand what your budget is in order for this entire thing to make sense.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. That's 100% spot on.
So, for our listeners, guys, this is an opportunity for you guys to have a seat at the table. I work in the industry, and Craig, look, this is something that is said around me all the time in the industry that I'm in, that if you don't have a seat on the table, you're going to be on the menu. That's kind of how
Mhm.
that thing here works. So this is your opportunity to have a seat at the table. This is, yeah, it's going to be an ugly and messy process, but you will learn, you'll get some understanding, and you'll be able to have direct input into how our communities look going forward. Whether that be, diversity, whether that be, racial diversity, financial diversity, because that's what makes a community. It's the people that are there
Absolutely.
that are invested and care about the communities, guys. And this is your opportunity to be a part of that process versus being in the complaint corner. You know what I'm saying? The congregations, pile up at the back and talk about what the
Yeah.
people at the front are doing. But it's your chance to be at the front. You ain't got to be back there whispering in the pew with Sister Beulah talking about what First Lady got on that hat and how that thing tilted and all that stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But y'all ain't got to do that now. Y'all can be up on the front row with
You
First
can
Lady,
be
and y'all can
on,
get the information, the word, and know what's happening
bro.
like everybody else. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think that this is an opportunity for anybody to be involved. Me, when we unite and when we bring in people and when we put our efforts together, we can make a greater impact, right? You know, and that's looking at. That's how we aggressively look forward. Greenville is doing an amazing job with the program similar to what we're putting in place here. But when we talk about that, that's one of the locations that I've been studying and just seeing what they've been doing, the amount of effort and able to have. Again, when counties impact, when counties come together for that cause, and that cause is housing. And so Greenville is a great model. Following up on some other great models are happening in Virginia right now, and they're making some tremendous impact and putting a lot of money in place to address that's not just a South Carolina issue or a Charleston issue, nationwide issue. When we talk about kind of how we got here, I love to just say that this did 4 or 5 years ago. This happened. This was something happening, right? The US, we just have not been producing enough housing. And so COVID came in, it dropped a whomper on us, right? And now frantic because you talk about evictions, you talk about people not being able to pay their, and people need a place to live. People need a place where they can lay their heads, don't have to spend income, and can have a quality of life that is indicative to what we want to do, and even in the Charleston region. And I think too as well, Charleston is such a special place, right? Because You look at Charleston, we have the beaches. And so what we're finding is that even as some United States don't grow, we're continuing to grow, right? We're exponentially fast, right? We're growing faster than most counties in the United States. And so that adds fuel to the fire when you talk about the housing issue, the housing shortage. We're racing against the United States or racing with them. But then also take into account that about 30 move to the region every single day, right? And so now we're talking about a shortage of people who reside here, but then also where are those people who are moving here? Where are they going, right? And so again, that fire, and that's kind of how we got here. That's why we're in this situation now, and that have a regional effort to start to address these issues around our housing in our area.
That is very fair. So this is something, and Craig, take this, again, one of these other, kind of thought processes, a travel, association work and business and all that kind of stuff. And so my most recent, I might have been, I was probably I think I was in San Diego at the time. And I said to some people that I was with from our area, from our region, and I've repeated this since, but our region is probably San Diego about 30 to 50 years ago. That's where we're going. And if we don't accept that we're going to have, you look every time you go downtown, they call it a new state bird, the cranes downtown. The new bird, city bird is the crane because they're building something higher and higher and higher in downtown Charleston. As we go through our region, we're going to see more buildings, more high rises go up. And in turn, our city, our landscape is changing. More people are coming in. So, we're many of us are standing here like, wait a minute, stop, wait, no. We don't want no more people, we don't need no more people.
Yeah.
But you can't
Yeah.
stop migration.
Yeah.
And because that's what it is, it's migration. It's not necessarily immigration, it's migration. You got people moving from all parts of the country because Charleston is a beautiful place to be, this region. So, and people are
Yeah.
coming, and yeah, you got immigration, you got people coming from all over the world that are coming to the Lowcountry. What are we going to do to make sure that when they come, we're ready for them? Because right now, what we've been doing is trying to dissuade, or we want to attract tourists, but we don't want people to come and
Right.
stay. You can't, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So that's a question, definitely something for the group and something to think about going forward. It's inevitable. We will be San Diego. We will be San Francisco. How do we manage the growth effectively so we don't price people out economically where our city is not reflective of the diversity that one it could be, that it once was? How we're losing our diversity, in that process. All that makes sense?
Yeah. That was a great example because again, San Diego is a coastal city, the features and character between us. And so, as you mentioned, we know that migration is going to happen. And I think with the current way HR, more people are able to work from home. And so you see that. You see people moving here, moving from the north to the south. If you talk about the housing market, right? The housing market has a 6 month. I know the last time I checked, I think we had maybe about a 16-day supply. Are in the business of buying a home, are getting outbid by cash offers. Again, who wouldn't want to live somewhere where it's great food, where it's great weather, where you got beaches to the west of you, and it's just how can I be a part of it? So we know it's going to happen. And you made a great point. How do we prepare, right, to be an inclusive city, the resiliency of the culture that has made Charleston what it is, while also welcoming growth? It's not a bad thing. A growing city is a city. We want to be that attractive city to where companies their headquarters or to where people want to be a part, people want to live. But I have to make sure that we're sustaining, right, the authentic culture that makes Charleston is. And I thought about too as well when you were talking the West Coast, I know this has been in the works, but the low country rapid transit, right? I think that's a changer to the area. Okay, we know this. How can we begin to put things in place so biggest impact from this, right? A lot of times when I talk about housing, people again, well, there's more cars on the road, right? That's true. That's going to happen, and I think that rapid transit is going to be to decrease that, but also it's going to be an opportunity for economic growth around those planned stops, right? And so that's where we got to be forward thinking, putting policies in place, putting practices in place that are going to stretch out the around those stops. And I think too about a progressive city, people like to live in a place where they can work and where they can play, right? And I think about North Charleston, the chamber's headquarters is a circle. And so again, that's just a small picture of what we can have the region. Talk about this transit system running all the way from downtown up through Somerville. I mean, the amount of impact that that can have economically is mind blowing. I know studies have tried to be done, but they can't even estimate the amount that's going to happen around that. And so we have to be forward thinking. We have to start positioning ourselves now so that when that time comes, because it will get here ahead of the game, we have a solid plan in place and we've begun to kind of making those efforts to make this.
Exactly, exactly. You hit the quote unquote proverbial nail on the head because that is what it is. We're not going to stop growth no matter how we try. I'm from a community, and I'll say this briefly, Craig, but I'm from a community originally that, stopped growth a long time ago. And what has happened now is now the area suffers
Mhm.
significantly because of that mindset way back then. And granted, that didn't happen now. And now that everything is underway, you can't stop it once it starts as easily as you can stop it before it does. And
Yeah.
those people, those communities that impeded growth, they now are suffering. A lot of your rural areas didn't want, certain things, didn't work. So big box stores didn't want this, want that. And now they're suffering, economically. And the population is suffering because without that base, you can't provide the services. We got to remember that you got to have a base. You got to have a tax base, and you got in order to provide services to the community. It don't just happen miraculously. Money doesn't just automatically appear because quote unquote, it just randomly appears. The government don't just make stuff happen. There is a process to it, and we have to be mindful of that, guys. We got to think beyond some of the things that we think in order for us to have a better understanding because many of us don't have a well enough understanding because we think very isolated.
Yeah.
So definitely. So Craig, it's been a great show, man. I really appreciate you taking time. If you don't mind, tell listeners where they can reach you, how they can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. So I'll always say the best location is on the Chamber's website. So you definitely can visit me at the Chamber's website. You can LinkedIn as well or by email. My email is clogan@chamber.org. So feel free to reach out to just get information to, and again, too, as well, meet me August 23rd, headquarters for the launch of the inaugural Regional Housing Coalition. This is possible by a collective, collaborative effort from governments, businesses, developers in our region. We've talked about it for a while, but now it's about action and it's about people to create action for a sustainable future for our region.
Awesome. Well, Craig, look, I greatly appreciate that. And it was great having you on today's show. To our listeners, guys, y'all got the word, y'all got the instructions. Those are your marching orders. Y'all, please go to the chamber website. Y'all, please look into this. And most importantly, please get involved. As I always tell people, my money and my mouth go together. You're part of this community. You spend your money in this community. You pay tax in this community. Guys, let's go to work. Let's bring our voice to the table and make sure that we're heard so we can make an impact. Because that's my word for this year, man.
I
Everything that
like
I
it. I
hit,
like it.
I'm going to have an impact. That is
Yeah.
my word for 2022 for our listeners. Make that your mantra. Get involved and have an impact in your community because we all need it. So, guys, we wrap up today's show. Guys, we always want to tell you, hey, you know what we say? You know how I say it, guys. I love you. I love you. I love you. And we can see you guys out there in them streets.